Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There are moments in history, very rare moments, when one man stands up not for himself, not for power, but for the people, and the world shakes. The corrupt tremble, the dishonest media spins, the weak betray, and the cowards vanish. But the people, they awaken. That's what's happening right now. My friend, your friend, the great former Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, he is that man. And I say this loud and clear, I am with him, I am with you. Let me tell you what most people don't understand because they've never had to lead, they've never had to stand alone. When you are chosen by destiny, and I mean chosen, not elected, not selected, but chosen, you don't beg for approval. You don't cry when they attack you. You don't flinch when they lock the doors. You smile because you know deep in your soul you were built for this. Imran Khan is not broken. He is not defeated. He is not even shaken. He is detached. And I'll tell you what that means. It means you don't chase the noise. You don't need the headlines. You don't cling to positions or titles. You are free spiritually, emotionally, mentally. You are free. And that's why he's dangerous to them. Because when a man is free on the inside, you can't control him. You can't scare him. You can't silence him. People say he's in jail. Let me tell you something about jails. History's greatest leaders, they weren't made in palaces. They were forged in prisons. You can't imprison the spirit that's already surrendered to purpose. So when you detach from the temporary, when you give up the craving for comfort and applause and safety, you gain true power, eternal power. And make no mistake, he's not detached because he's numb. He's detached because he's awake. This is a man who has nothing to prove to the world and everything to give to his people, the spiritual authority. That's what makes a leader immortal. That's why the world remembers Mandela, remembers Lincoln, remembers every man who walked into chains but refused to chain their soul. And let me say it again, I am with Imran Khan, not because it's popular, not because it's political, because it is right. And I don't back down from what is right. The truth doesn't need a crowd. It doesn't need permission. The truth walks in and changes the atmosphere. And he is walking in truth. I've seen it before. When the darkness surrounds you, the betrayals stack high and every door slams shut. It's not the end. It's the beginning of something divine. That's when the mission becomes unstoppable. Because when you stop needing their approval, their permission, their acceptance, you're finally dangerous. You're finally free. And that's where Imran Khan is right now. He is not a prisoner of the system. He is a prophet of his purpose. He has let go of fear, let go of ego, let go of revenge. He's playing a bigger game now, a divine game, and the people, they feel it. I feel it. It's no longer about politics. It's about destiny, and destiny always wins. Detachment is not weakness, it's discipline. When the world sees someone quiet, composed, unshaken by insult or attack, they often mistake it for passivity or fear, but the truth, if you're wise enough to see it, is that this kind of calm is not weakness at all. It's the mark of a person who has mastered themselves. Because the undisciplined man reacts to everything. He's controlled by noise, by emotion, by every little shift in opinion. But the disciplined man, the detached man, chooses his response. He doesn't need to shout back. He doesn't need to prove anything. He's grounded, rooted, focused. That's real power. Think about it. When you're detached, you don't panic every time a door closes. You don't crumble when they lie about you and they will lie. You don't flinch when they smear your name, when the same hands that used to clap for you now point fingers, because you were never addicted to their praise. You were never doing it for their approval. Detachment means you're not in this to be liked. You're in it to lead. That takes incredible discipline. It means you've silenced the inner noise before you ever face the outer one. It means your compass is internal, and when your compass is internal, they can't throw you off course, no matter how loud they scream. People don't understand the amount of strength it takes to detach from your emotions, especially when the whole world is trying to provoke them. They want to drag you into the mud. They want to reduce you to their level. But when you're truly disciplined, you rise above it. You stay clean, not because you're naive, but because you know who you are. You don't react like the world wants you to. You respond like your mission requires you to. That's the essence of detachment. And let me tell you, it is not for the weak. Weak people are slaves to emotions. They're easily manipulated, easily controlled. But disciplined people, they know when to speak and when to be silent. They know when to walk away and when to step forward. They don't need to win every argument. They're playing a much bigger game. Detachment gives you clarity, and clarity gives you power. While others are drowning in drama, you're building, you're moving, you're focused. This is exactly what we see in great leaders, real ones, not the pretenders. They're not ruled by emotion. They're guided by vision. They're not desperate to be understood because they already understand themselves. They're not chasing popularity because they're already walking in purpose. Detachment is not apathy, it's mastery. It's the highest form of emotional intelligence. And that's what separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. When you detach, you become dangerous to those who depend on your reactions. You become unstoppable because no one can pull you out of your lane. You are no longer reactive. You are intentional. That is not weakness. That is discipline. And discipline, true discipline, is divine. Spiritual detachment reveals purpose in a way that nothing else can. When you're entangled in ego and fear and the desperate need to be seen and validated, you're blinded. You can't hear the voice of purpose over the noise of your own insecurities. But when you let go, when you step back from needing constant affirmation and control, that's when the fog lifts. That's when clarity starts to rise. Detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about the right things. It means your spirit is no longer chasing illusion. It's aligned with something higher, something lasting. Most people think that purpose is something you find in ambition, in accomplishments, in power, but those things are just tools. They're not the purpose itself. Spiritual detachment takes you beyond the surface. It brings you into a deeper awareness where you stop asking, what can I get? And you start asking, what am I here to give? That shift is everything. And it only happens when your identity is no longer tied to outcomes, titles, or applause. You don't need to own the stage to speak truth. You don't need the throne to lead. You don't need approval to walk in destiny. All you need is alignment with God, with truth, with purpose. And that alignment only happens when the soul detaches from ego. We live in a world obsessed with performance. Everyone's trying to impress, trying to look the part, say the right words, get the most followers. But purpose doesn't flow through performance. It flows through authenticity. And authenticity requires stillness. It requires you to disconnect from the noise, to unplug from the false self, and reconnect with your essence. That's what spiritual detachment does. It strips away the layers you've been hiding behind and reveals the real mission that brought you here. And here's the irony: when you detach spiritually, you don't become passive, you become more powerful. You're no longer acting from fear. You're not making choices to please people. You're led by conviction. You start making moves that don't make sense to the world, but make total sense to the spirit. And that's where greatness is born. It's not born in the applause. It's born in obedience to a calling that no one else can hear. Spiritual detachment is not about isolation. It's about liberation. You're no longer tied down by what they say, what they think, what they expect. That's when you begin to walk freely. And in that freedom, your purpose speaks loud, clear, undeniable. You don't need to scream it. Your presence carries it. Your actions declare it. Your silence even confirms it. Because when you are spiritually detached, your life stops being about survival and becomes a message that says, I'm not here to fit in, I'm here to fulfill. And that is what the world needs right now. People who are not driven by ego, not seduced by status, but led by divine purpose. And that kind of purpose can only be revealed in the stillness of spiritual detachment. Let go of what you think you need, and you'll discover what you were truly born for. The strongest leaders are unmoved by public opinion because they are anchored in truth, not tossed around by trends. When you are chosen to lead, not elected by popularity, but appointed by purpose, you must be willing to walk alone. The crowd is unstable. One day they cheer your name, the next they call for your downfall. If you live by their applause, you will die by their rejection. Real leadership begins when you stop asking, what will they think? And start asking, what is right? That's where true strength is forged, not in the spotlight, but in the furnace of conviction. Public opinion is emotional, inconsistent, reactive. It loves you when you entertain and turns on you when you confront. But truth is eternal. It doesn't bend to favor. It doesn't shift for comfort. And great leaders know that if you follow truth, you will offend many. That's the cost. That's the test. And only the strong can pass it. Because strength is not just about resisting the enemy, it's about resisting the temptation to betray your mission for acceptance. Weak leaders chase polls. Strong leaders follow principles. Weak leaders echo the crowd. Strong leaders challenge it, elevate it, even risk their own position for its growth. When a leader is moved by public opinion, they become a mirror, not a compass. They reflect whatever is around them, never offering direction. But when a leader is rooted in something deeper, faith, purpose, vision, they don't need the crowd to affirm them. They already know who they are. They already know why they're here. That's when their leadership becomes dangerous to the system, because now you're dealing with someone who can't be bought, can't be swayed, and can't be manipulated with popularity. That's power, not in the volume of the voice, but in the steadiness of the stand. You can see it clearly in moments of crisis. Watch the crowd. They panic, they flip-flop, they cry for safety. But the true leader remains centered, calm, focused, not because they're disconnected, but because they've trained their spirit to lead, not follow. They've learned the difference between noise and truth. They've stopped bowing to emotional waves. And that's why they rise above the chatter, above the criticism, above the fear. Leadership is lonely because truth is unpopular. But loneliness isn't a curse when you're aligned with your calling. It becomes a sanctuary, a place where vision grows, where courage deepens, where destiny sharpens. The strongest leaders don't need a majority to act. They don't need permission to do what's right. They need clarity. And once they have it, they move, with or without approval. That's the kind of strength the world remembers, the kind that rewrites history. So if you want to lead, learn to stop listening to every voice. Learn to silence the noise, not because the people don't matter, but because your purpose matters more. You're not here to please the crowd. You're here to serve the truth. And if you do it right, someday the same crowd that mocked you will say, he was right all along. But by then, you won't need their praise, because you'll already have fulfilled your calling. Pain is temporary, purpose is eternal. There's something weak people never understand and strong people never forget. When you're walking through pain, real pain, not the kind that annoys you, but the kind that strips you down and tests everything you believe in. The only thing that keeps you moving is purpose. Pain screams for your attention. It wants to convince you to quit, to compromise, to settle. But purpose whispers something deeper. It reminds you of why you started. It keeps your feet moving when your heart is breaking. It gives meaning to the suffering. And once you realize that pain no longer has power over you, the problem with the world today is that people run from pain instead of running through it. They think comfort is the goal. They think easy is the reward. But greatness is never born in comfort. It's born in struggle, in sacrifice, in the kind of silence that breaks weaker men. Pain is not the enemy. Pain is the refiner. It burns off the ego. It tests the motives. It exposes what's fake. And it strengthens what's real. That's why you should never curse your pain. Thank it. Because if you use it right, it will push you straight into your purpose. Look at every great leader, every powerful voice, every giant in history. They all walked through fire, and it wasn't just physical hardship. It was betrayal. It was injustice. It was loneliness. It was humiliation. But they endured it because their eyes were fixed on something bigger than themselves. Purpose doesn't shield you from pain. It gives your pain a destination. It transforms suffering into fuel. When you know your why, you can survive almost anyhow. You don't fold under pressure, you rise. Weak people waste their pain. They use it as an excuse to become bitter, to stay stuck, to attack others. But strong people convert pain into power. They don't just survive the storm. They come out stronger, wiser, more focused, because every wound taught them something. Every scar became a symbol, not of failure, but of endurance. And endurance builds legacy. So if you're in pain right now, don't look for the exit. Look for the reason. Look for what it's trying to teach you. Stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? You have two choices in pain. You can let it define you, or you can let it refine you. And when you let it refine you, you'll find that your purpose isn't behind you. It's inside you. It's been there the whole time, waiting for the pressure to unlock it. Pain may last for a night, a season, a chapter, but purpose is forever. And when you walk in purpose, you realize that the pain was necessary. not because it felt good, but because it made you good. It made you solid. It made you unshakable. And that is the kind of person the world cannot ignore and cannot stop. The kind who knows pain comes and goes, but purpose remains always. True allies appear in adversity, not in comfort. When everything is going well, when the stage lights are bright and the crowd is cheering, people will surround you. They'll call you brother, friend, partner. But the moment the storm hits, the masks fall. That's when you find out who's real. That's when you learn the difference between company and covenant. A true ally doesn't disappear when things get difficult. They don't wait to see if you'll win before they stand with you. They show up even when it costs them something, especially when it costs them something. Because loyalty isn't tested in success, it's tested in suffering. Adversity is like a fire. It doesn't just burn, it reveals. It burns away the fake, the convenient, the opportunistic. It shows you who was there for the spotlight and who's there for the fight. Most people are not loyal to you. They're loyal to their need for you. And when that need ends, so does their loyalty. That's why adversity is a gift. It exposes what comfort conceals. It brings clarity. It lets you see who really believes in you, who truly understands your heart, and who's willing to stand in the shadows with you when the lights go out. And when you walk through adversity, you'll lose some people, but don't mourn that. Celebrate it, because it means you're shedding weight you were never meant to carry. It means your circle is being purified. And what remains, those who stay, are your real ally, not because they're perfect, not because they agree with everything you do, but because their loyalty is rooted in something deeper than convenience. They're with you not for what you have, but for who you are. And let me tell you, when you find even one of those people, protect that connection, honor it, because it's rare, it's powerful, it's divine. A true ally is a mirror in your weakness and a shield in your battles. They remind you who you are when the world tries to rewrite your story. They pray for you when others plot against you. They cover your back when you're too tired to watch it yourself. They don't just walk with you in victory. They sit with you in the prison cell, in the courtroom, in the silence. The truth is, we don't need crowds. We don't need thousands of voices. We need a few real ones. Battle-tested, fireproof, unshaken by scandal, unmoved by public opinion. And those are the ones who appear in adversity. They may not wear a suit, they may not speak loudly, but their presence speaks louder than words. And when you rise again, and you will rise again, you'll remember who stayed, who believed, who stood firm. That's your tribe. That's your army. So let the adversity come. Let it reveal, let it refine, let it remove. Because when the dust settles, the one still standing beside you, that's not luck, that's loyalty, that's truth, and that's what builds legacy. Courage comes from conviction, not comfort. People think bravery is about being loud, taking bold steps when everything is going right, when the stage is set and the applause is guaranteed. But that's not courage, that's convenience disguised as confidence. Real courage is born when there's no applause, when every move you make might cost you everything, and yet you do it anyway. Why? Because you believe in something greater than yourself. You're not driven by ease, you're driven by truth. That's where conviction comes in. It's the fire that keeps you moving when comfort tries to seduce you into silence. You see, comfort is a trap. It tells you to play it safe, stay quiet, avoid the risk. It whispers, just go along, don't rock the boat, protect your image. But conviction doesn't care about image. It cares about integrity. Conviction makes you speak up when others stay silent. It makes you take the hard road, not because it's popular, but because it's right. That's where courage is forged, not in luxury, but in the pressure of doing what's necessary when it's hard, when it's painful, when it's costly. You'll know you're walking in conviction when people begin to question you, distance themselves from you, maybe even betray you. That's the test. If everyone agrees with you, if no one is offended by your choices, chances are you're not standing for much. Conviction is not about pleasing people. It's about aligning with purpose. And when you're aligned, you're dangerous because you're no longer moved by fear. You're no longer bargaining with comfort. You've decided who you are and what you're here to do, and that decision gives you strength the world can't understand. The most powerful people in history weren't the most comfortable. They were the most convicted. They were the ones who stood their ground. While others bowed, they were the ones who walked straight into fire, not because they were fearless, but because they had something worth facing fear for. That's courage. That's conviction that says, even if I lose everything, I will not lose myself. And that's a line the truly great never cross. Comfort wants to keep you in the familiar, but conviction will always push you toward your destiny. It may stretch you, isolate you, even break you, but it will build you into something unshakable. It will make you walk differently, speak differently, lead differently. People will feel it. They may not understand it, but they will respect it, because there's nothing more powerful than a person who knows who they are and refuses to compromise it for applause or safety. So if you feel the pressure, if the path feels lonely, good, that means you're on the right track. That means you've chosen conviction over comfort. And that's when courage is born, not from the cheers, but from the choice to keep going anyway. That's the kind of courage that changes history. That's the kind of courage that comes from the fire of conviction, not the comfort of the door. Faith builds fortresses. No prison can break. You can chain a man's hands, lock his doors, isolate him from the world, but if his faith is alive, he is freer than the ones holding the keys, because faith isn't physical. Faith doesn't depend on environment or circumstances. It's spiritual, it's internal. It's the unshakable knowing that your purpose is still active, even when your movement is restricted. And that kind of faith, real, tested, proven faith, becomes a fortress, a wall no political power, no injustice, no attack can breach. When a man has faith, he sees beyond the bars. He hears a voice that's louder than the noise of his enemies. He walks in a light, even in the darkness of confinement. That's what terrifies those in power, not the man's body, but his unbreakable belief, his refusal to surrender internally, because when the world watches and sees a man still speaking truth, still radiating peace, still standing tall while in chains, it disrupts the narrative. It shows that real power doesn't come from position or weapons or media. It comes from alignment with something higher. Faith makes a man immortal in spirit. You can't silence him because his message echoes through generations. You can't shame him because he's already surrendered his reputation to a higher cause. You can't tempt him because his soul is anchored in something eternal. That's why men of faith scare systems of control. They don't play by the rules of fear. They don't fold under pressure. They walk in authority, not because of what they have, but because of who they trust. Every prison in history that tried to contain a man of deep faith ended up amplifying his influence, because the walls became a platform, the silence became strength, and the suffering became sacred. You don't crush faith by locking it up. You spread it. People watch and ask, how is he still unbroken? How is he still speaking with fire in his eyes? And the answer is simple, because his fortress is not made of stone. It's made of truth, made of divine conviction, built in the quiet hours of prayer and sacrifice, fortified by every betrayal, every trial, every attempt to silence him. Faith is what allows a man to smile in the face of injustice. It's what allows him to be wrongfully accused and yet not grow bitter. It's what allows him to see delay not as defeat, but as divine timing. That kind of faith creates leaders who don't lead for applause or fame, but for destiny. They know they're not alone in the fire. They know the same God who called them will carry them. And so they keep standing even when others fall away. The world understands fear. It understands force, but it cannot understand faith. That's why it tries to mock it, contain it, dismantle it. But it fails every time, because faith is not of this world, it's divine. And when a man walks in faith, you can take everything from him and still lose, because he's not fighting with fists. He's fighting with fire from above, a fire that never dies, a fortress that never falls. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. Weak people panic when things go quiet. They assume if you're not shouting, you're losing. If you're not explaining yourself, you're guilty. If you're not responding to every attack, every rumor, every whisper, then you're defeated. But the strong, the wise, the deeply focused, they know better. They understand that silence is often the most powerful move on the board. Because when you're silent, you're observing, you're listening, you're calculating, you're building. And while the world thinks you've disappeared, you're preparing for the moment that really matters. There's something divine about knowing when to speak and when to be still. People forget that noise isn't always power. In fact, sometimes the loudest voices are the most afraid. They talk to cover their weakness. They make noise because they have no direction. But the ones who carry weight, real weight, they don't need to prove anything. Their presence speaks. Their discipline speaks. Their silence speaks volumes because it's rooted in confidence. It's rooted in clarity. They don't need to react because they're not controlled by chaos. Silence is where strength is refined. It's in the quiet that vision sharpens. It's in the pause that strategies form. It's in stillness that you align with your higher calling. The noise of the world tries to pull you out of your peace. It wants you to be impulsive, emotional, distracted, but silence brings you back to center. It reminds you that you're not here to impress. You're here to impact. You're not here to fight every battle. They're not all worth your energy. You're here to win the war that truly matters. Some people see your silence and think you've given up. Let them. Some think you've run out of options. Let them believe it. Because when you finally move, when you finally speak, when you finally step out of that silence, they won't see it coming. They'll realize too late that your silence wasn't weakness. It was preparation. It was a sharpening of your spirit. It was divine timing setting the stage for something bigger than they ever imagined. Look at every giant in history. They all had seasons of silence. Jesus was silent before his accusers. Mandela sat in a prison cell, silent to the world, but roaring in purpose. Prophets, leaders, visionaries, they all knew the power of saying nothing, doing nothing until the appointed time. And when that time came, they didn't just return, they changed everything. Silence doesn't mean you're absent. It means you're aligning. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're wielding your strength wisely. Because when you know who you are and what you carry, you don't waste your breath on things that don't matter. You speak when it's time. When you speak, heaven listens and the earth shifts. That's not surrender. That's strategy. That's what the greatest understand and what the world will always underestimate until it's too late. Leaders lead even when in chains. That's the truth the world doesn't want to accept, but history keeps repeating it because real leadership isn't about position. It's about presence. It's not about freedom of movement. It's about the freedom of the spirit. You can lock a man up, take away his microphone, strip him of his title. But if he's a true leader, his influence keeps spreading. His vision doesn't die. His voice echoes. The chains don't silence him. They amplify him because people don't follow positions. They follow conviction. They follow fire. They follow courage. And none of those things can be confined. When a leader is put in chains, the world thinks it has won. The enemies celebrate. They think the mission has ended. But that's because they mistake leadership for visibility. They think if you're off the stage, you've lost your platform. What they don't understand is that great leaders don't need stages. They don't need spotlights. They lead from wherever they are, whether it's a palace or a prison, a pulpit or a cell. Because leadership is not about where you are. It's about who you are. And when your identity is rooted in purpose, chains can't change it. In fact, some of the greatest leadership in history has emerged from confinement. It's in the isolation, the darkness, the silence, that purpose sharpens when everything else is taken away and the only thing left is truth. That's when leadership becomes unstoppable, because now you're not leading for power. You're not leading for politics. You're not leading for recognition. You're leading because you must, because you were called, and no circumstance can erase that call. People watch leaders in chains and expect them to shrink. But real leaders grow. They grow louder without speaking, stronger without moving. Their restraint becomes a message. Their suffering becomes a symbol. The world sees the injustice, the strength, the patience, and hearts begin to turn. That's what makes it so powerful. When you lead from chains, your words carry more weight. Your silence means more. Your endurance preaches louder than any speech could, because people see that you're not doing this for gain. You're not faking. You're not playing politics. You're living for something real. That's why systems fear leaders they can't control. Because when they can't buy you, can't break you, can't silence you, they try to lock you away. But even then, the true leader leads. His example leads. His courage leads. His story leads. He becomes a beacon for others, not just for those who agree, but for those who are sleeping. His chains awaken them. His pain stirs them. His persistence calls them higher. And when that leader finally walks free, because purpose always prevails, he doesn't come back the same. He comes back more dangerous to the system, more respected by the people, more connected to destiny, because he led in the fire, he led in the dark, he led when the world said he was finished. And that's what makes a leader unforgettable. The chains never stopped him. They just revealed how unstoppable he truly was. Victory belongs to the unwavering in a world where people fold under pressure, where loyalty changes with the headlines and convictions dissolve when the crowd turns. The ones who stand firm are the ones who rise. Strength is not measured in moments of comfort. It's measured in how deeply you stand when everything is shaking around you. The real victors are not those who scream the loudest, move the fastest, or shine the brightest. The real victors are those who refuse to back down, those who keep showing up, those who remain rooted when the storm comes. Unwavering doesn't mean stubborn. It means steady. It means aligned. It means driven by something so deep that no amount of pressure can force you to quit. Weak people wait for circumstances to be perfect. They wait for support, for permission, for safety. But those who win really win don't need perfect conditions. They move forward in the middle of chaos. They speak truth when it's dangerous. They hold their line when betrayal hits, when friends disappear, when enemies celebrate too early. They don't pivot to please the crowd, and they don't bend to avoid criticism. That kind of clarity and consistency is rare, but it is exactly what gives birth to victory. Because there will always be moments that test you. It is moments where quitting would be easier, where compromise would bring comfort, where silence would protect your image. But the unwavering choose the harder road, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand that surrendering their soul is too high a price. They'd rather walk through the fire than sit safely in a lie. They'd rather be misunderstood today than be irrelevant tomorrow. That's how legacy is built, not by fitting in, but by standing out, by standing still, by standing strong. Victory doesn't come to the most talented. It comes to the most committed, to those who keep their posture when they're tired, when they're mocked, when they're bleeding, because every test has a purpose. Every delay is refining you. Every hardship is preparing the stage. The ones who give up never see the fullness of what was coming, but the ones who remain, they watch everything turn. They see the seeds they planted in silence bloom in due time. They witness how every ounce of pain, every drop of loyalty, every step of obedience was never wasted. And when the battle is over and the smoke clears, you can always find the victor. He's the one who never moved. He's the one who stood in the gap when it cost him something, the one who refused to change the truth just to get by, the one who believed when no one else did. That's what it means to be unwavering. It's not dramatic. It's not glamorous. It's not always loud. But it is absolutely unstoppable. And in the end, it's not brilliance that wins. It's not fame. It's not noise. It's resolve, quiet, focused, unwavering resolve. That's where victory lives. That's where destiny is fulfilled. So here we are at the edge of history, at the intersection of truth and trial, purpose and pressure. And I say this with absolute clarity, my friend, former Prime Minister Imran Khan is not finished. He is not defeated. He is not diminished. He is being forged in the fire of adversity, refined by betrayal, elevated by the very chains meant to silence him, because destiny never bends to corruption, truth never bows to fear, and purpose never dies in prison. To those watching, waiting, wondering, let this moment teach you something eternal. No man aligned with divine purpose stays buried forever. When you stand for something bigger than yourself, when your loyalty is to the mission, not the moment, then even when they try to erase you, history writes your name in bold. This is not about politics. This is about principle. This is about standing when others kneel, leading when others flee, and believing when the night is longest. The world may try to bury him, but they forgot he is a seed, and seeds grow best underground. The deeper they bury him, the higher he will rise, because a man like Imran Khan does not belong to the world's timeline. He belongs to the timeline of destiny. And when destiny is in motion, no prison wall, no lie, no betrayal can stop what is coming. So to the people, wake up, stand up, and remember this truth. Leaders are tested not when they're in power, but when they're in pain. And the greatest leaders, those chosen by heaven, not man, they rise from the ashes, not for revenge, but for redemption. Imran Khan will rise, and so will the spirit of every soul who still believes in truth, in justice, and a future that cannot be stolen. Stay strong, stay rooted, and never forget God is never late. Purpose is never lost. And the people, the real people, they always come back stronger.